So welcome everybody. This is the webinar by Encryption Europe, an alliance of SMEs, European SMEs specialized on encryption. And so we have been established 2 years ago, and so our focus is to promote strong encryption, simple and available to everybody. This webinar is broadcasted live on ISOC Live, our partner ISOC, and so today we are celebrating Privacy Day. We are going to do this every year now on a yearly basis. Kudos and special thanks to Tresorit for suggesting this initiative, and Esther Silva in the team of István, who really helped us put this together. Also, this morning we have published a statement on, the need to enter into a dialogue on encryption, transparent dialogue. And we also have made, if you read the statement, you will see that we have a reference to the recent and quite innovative, if I could say, initiative by the UK government called No Place to Hide. And this is something we had not seen before in Europe in terms of mobilizing, a community against the encryption community. And we find this initiative, let's say, unfortunate. And we propose other ways to really develop a more constructive and helpful and useful dialogue to bring a safer digital environment. With this, I would like to introduce Mr. Member of Parliament Patrick Breyer, member of the Private Party Germany, one of the most vocal and competent experts on data privacy and encryption in particular. So it's really a pleasure to have you, Mr. Breyer, and have your views on what you see happening. Lots is happening at the moment in the field of encryption and data protection. So the way we're going to do this session is listening from Mr. Breyer and his thoughts as an introduction to the session, and then two members of our alliance, two CEOs, István Lám from Tresorit and Didier Hoareau from Kixel, will share their views and how they see the development from their business perspective. There will be no commercial pitch, only experience from industry on how and why encryption is so important, so vital to the future of Europe. With this, I would like to hand over to Mr. Breyer, and thank you very much again for being with us today and share your thoughts with us. So over to you, Mr. Breyer.
Thank you for a kind introduction, and a happy Data Protection Day to everybody. It's a reason to celebrate because privacy is a foundation of our society. So many of us rely on it for personal reasons, because of others that we are in need of, whistleblowers, for example, political activists, for the economy, also for safeguarding state secrets. And that's why it's a reason to celebrate that protection of privacy in Europe is leading on a global scale. At the same time, the crypto wars are flaring back up also in Europe. There is this current UK campaign that instrumentalizes child sexual abuse to fuel a narrative claiming that encryption was a threat to public safety. And while this aggressively framed campaign has caused many stakeholders to voice their opposition to the government's plans to weaken encryption for all citizens, the EU Commission's plan to introduce legislation that will undermine the confidentiality of communications has not yet caused a similar outcry, but it should. So in my opening statement, I would like to draw your attention to these plans by the EU Commission, which would oblige providers of personal communication services to indiscriminately and automatically scan and monitor citizens' private communications for potentially illegal child sexual abuse material. This legislation is announced to be proposed on the 2nd of March and severely threatens the security and the privacy of our communications, be they end-to-end encrypted or not. As my political group's lead for this legislation, I've been campaigning against this so-called chat control for more than a year now. And it was on the 6th of July of last year that the European Parliament approved the voluntary use of this indiscriminatory chat control, which is so far actually used only by unencrypted US services such as Gmail, the Meta Messenger, or the Xbox. But now the EU Commission has announced the follow-up regulation, which would make the chat control compulsory for all providers. And that would, of course, undermine securely end-to-end encrypted communications, which would also fall under the scope of the law, meaning that every message, every picture, every video would have to be screened by an algorithm. And in the case of end-to-end encrypted communications, they would have to use client-side scanning that would then scan the private communications against a database, which is obviously massively contains massive numbers of errors. According to the Swiss Federal Police, 86% of these so-called NACMEC reports that they receive from the United States are not even criminally relevant. And suspicious communications content would automatically be reported to the police, which of course completely undermines the very idea of secure communications and end-to-end encryptions. So it will no longer be securely end-to-end encrypted. This really compares to oblige the post office to open and scan all letters just to see if there could be something illegal in it. It's completely unacceptable. This proposal not only ignores everybody's, including children's, rights to private communications, but it particularly endangers victims of child sexual abuse. By destroying safe spaces, victims are especially in need of the ability to confidentially seek counseling, seek support, exchange among each other with therapists, with their lawyers. This kind of mass surveillance would take these safe rooms away from them and can discourage victims from seeking help and support. I already mentioned the statistics according just how ineffective this chat control is. If you get 86% material that's not even criminally relevant, you're basically flooding investigators that are already overloaded and don't even have the capacities to screen the material they are aware of. You're flooding them with material that's mostly not even criminally relevant, which means that they have less time and capacities even to investigate actual suspects of child sexual abuse and rescue victims. Furthermore, young people are disproportionately being criminalized. According to the German crime statistics, 30% of investigations into child pornography target minors. And so the children that they claim to be protecting are actually being criminalized, where completely other measures would be needed, for example, telling children why this is illegal and not funny. So client-side scanning would require providers to build in a backdoor to their encrypted services and clients. And this would undermine the secure encryption and the trust in digital communications that is comes with it. Apple announced the introduction of a similar technology last year, causing a massive public outcry, and they had to scrap their plans. Security experts such as Breyer warned that preemptively scanning all user devices for targeted content is far more insidious than earlier proposals for key escrow and exceptional access. Instead of having targeted capacities, such as to wiretap communications with a warrant or perform forensics on seized devices, the agency's direction of travel is bulk scanning of everyone's private data all the time without warrant or suspicion. So this is also what the Commission's proposal is exactly about. We have commissioned a representative poll among EU citizens to ask them about their opinion. And the poll that was done in 10 EU member states showed that 72% of citizens oppose having their private messages searched for allegedly illegal material, with only 18% supporting the idea. Also, 80% of the respondents to the EU Commission's own public consultation on the proposed legislation did not want to have encrypted messages indiscriminately monitored and placed under surveillance. So this has led to the legislation being postponed repeatedly, but it's still on the schedule, and therefore much stronger advocacy of encryption defenders is needed. The legislation on voluntary chat control barely gained any publicity, even among privacy activists. And the other side of this advocacy battle are a number of highly resourceful so-called children's rights NGOs, especially from the US and the UK, that are lobbying the Commission and the European Parliament intensely. So we need to put up something against this. And on the occasion of today's Data Protection Day, 20 members of the European Parliament have sent an open letter to the Commission, urging it to abolish its chat control plans. This is the first EU legislative measure providing for privatized mass surveillance and attacking encryption. It's not by chance that the Five Eyes intelligence services publicly advocated chat control last year, because they hope once this backdoor has been implemented in encrypted apps, they will be able to use it as well for what they call lawful interception, and it'll be used for all sorts of purposes. So don't let them get away with claiming that this protects children, because they'll do it again. If the children framing works, they will use it to justify anything. And then they'll later use it for other purposes. We've seen that many times. So to effectively impact the Commission's ongoing negotiations, we'll need the support of privacy-oriented stakeholders. And I would like to encourage you to voice your concerns on the effects of this legislation on private and encrypted communications, either by contacting the Commission directly or members of Parliament, or even by generating public attention for this widely unknown proposal. And I can refer you to my website on this, chatcontrol.eu, and I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Breyer. We'll have a question about the, because you are such an expert in these questions, and we know how technical and complex they are. I mean, for most people, including members of Parliament. Could you share with us, like, your experience in terms of, I mean, getting your colleagues in the Parliament looking at this issue? Did you see a change in their interest? I mean, the discussion on privacy and these measures on automatic surveillance of communication in the privacy regulation last year was clearly a change. Framed from the outside, we could see a clear change. How have you seen a different level of response from your colleagues in the Parliament? Are they more interested, paying more attention to the topic, or do you think, I mean, we still have to do so much more?
I think that the Apple's spy phone plans really triggered a public debate and a very intense opposition to it. So that changed the game a bit in comparison to when this first chat control voluntary regulation was passed last year. So since then, we've had a critical debate, at least in Germany, with even the Boulevard and newspapers covering this as a big brother attack on our smartphones. That was the headline. And yes, people are interested, but they need to know about it. So far, many people don't even know about it.
No, indeed, and to build on what you said, calling for much stronger advocacy for encryption. I mean, the Encryption Europe, we are only 2 years old. I mean, basically, or 3 years old, established in 2019. Before, there was not a single, if I could say, pure alliance of companies, of encryption companies working in this field. And after 2 years, we are 10 companies, which is still a small number. And so we see the need to be more outspoken. And so I will now give the floor to two of our members. And Tresorit is one of our newest member, relatively new. I mean, joined last year and already one of the most active. So thank you, István, for joining us today. So you're CEO of Tresorit, based in, initiated in Hungary, now part of the Swiss Post Group. And so you wanted to share with us your experience on the different requirements and contradicting requirements from regulations, and share your entrepreneurial and business view on how you manage this complexity. So István, thank you for being with us, and I'll give you the floor.
Thank you, Jean-Christophe, and to being here and being invited. And thankfully, in the last year, we have shared some other webinars. So that was great. So just a quick intro about myself. I started my career where I was educated as a cryptography engineer. And during this studies, I started using Google Picasa, and I uploaded my photos there, and it suddenly started recognizing people's faces on even bluer pictures. And that sort of freaked me out. And that was that was 10 years ago. And that was motivation, one of the motivation why I wanted to say that, okay, I want to design a place where I can put my pictures where no one can scan. I mean, like looking into what I'm doing with my family and with others somewhere in the US, that was too much. And that was the time when we came up with the end-to-end encrypted service, the basis of end-to-end encrypted service, Tresorit, we have right now as a company. And I think when it comes to the discussion of end-to-end encryption and how it should be, or encryption should be limited, we should also not forget that there is a big requirement to protect information, especially for businesses, compliance requirements to protect information, electronic and digital information. Because more hackers are trying to gain their corporate espionage is happening, and that if we are undermining the technical measures how this information can be protected, then it's literally the legislators are saying, okay, guys, you need to comply with this and this and this, and you need to have the highest protection, but you cannot use one of the strongest protection tool, encryption. And that's a conflict. Businesses today need to use encryption because almost every relevant and valuable information is digital right now. And when it comes to data protection in particular, these compliance requirements naming encryption as measures, technical measures, what they need to use. So from this perspective, I feel that not every legislator is thinking through that. Okay, one side is lowering the secrecy of the good tool of encryption. And the other thing which we should not forget, that encryption is everywhere. And it's not like just used by a few people who are in shady business. When we are communicating right now, this channel is encrypted. And this channel or this communication is encrypted in multiple levels. For instance, I'm using my laptop and my Wi-Fi connection is encrypted. Then there is another encryption layer in the backbone of the network to secure the backbone communication. Then there is an encryption layer for Zoom that is encrypting the communication between the server and my computer. But there are encryption in my device on the hard drive. So if I lose my device, then no one can access the data. And there is encryption in the SIM card there are encryptions basically in every part of our digital life. Encryption and cryptography is making possible what we see as digital ecosystems. Because without the protection of the encryption, we would not trust. We would not trust with the best information what we are putting into the digital systems. And if we are undermining this great technical tool, then there will be new security threats. There will be new issues, and that could also undermine the digital economy, because less people will trust as more breaches will happen. And that what I want to say is my third point is that backdoors is not just it is a risk for everyone, the vast majority of the people, because that a backdoor can be used by someone with wrong intentions. And when it comes to, for instance, investigations, that's very valid point, that illegal activities online should be prevented. That should be the investigation should have tools to go against illegal activities and criminal activities online. That's true, but at the same time, we should not undermine the security of legit businesses and legit individuals, millions or billions online, by lowering the security of encryption. And that's our statement. That's what we think. And as an engineer with my background, I see a very hard time to design a system which have the cake and eat the cake type of thing. So this dialogue needs to happen, and it's not just a simple question of legislation. It is also the limitations of the technology and potentials of inside the encryption and security systems. So thank you, and I'm giving back to the microphone to Jean-Christophe.
Thank you, István. Before I hand over to Didier, just a follow-up question on this Know How to Place initiative and your own experience, at least on the on working with child safety NGOs. I mean, it seems that encryption is also used by child safety NGOs for their own use, and some have some experience. At least you have some experience yourself. Can you elaborate on this and how you work with child safety NGOs?
Yeah, well, as Mr. Breyer mentions, they're victims and need to communicate in their investigation, which needs to communicate safely and securely. And we are in connection with, for instance, many NGOs, and using Tresorit to protect the communication between the organization and victims. But one particular organization is actually helping and contributing the investigation and communicating and sharing materials with the victims. And you can imagine that this communication should be protected because of the victims. The victims should be protected, and we are helping and supporting this NGO. And it is also important that, I mean, when such a thing happens, the investigation should not leak any more information, any more materials than originally was leaked to the internet.
Yeah, thank you. And this shows that yes, and probably the NGOs who use encryption understand how it's useful for their work may have a more nuanced opinion on how to use encryption. And of course, I think a very important point you made, and this people sometimes are confused about this, is that you, I mean, as a CEO of Tresorit and us as Encryption Europe and our members, I mean, we do work with law enforcement, and we are looking for ways to help law enforcement do their job effectively. And some people on this session, and probably more on Isaac know that we do have this dialogue, but that's of course, I mean, more transparency, probably discussion is needed so that everybody is satisfied that we all make the world safer without, I mean, breaching on people's privacy. I would like now to hand over to Didier. Didier Hoareau is the CEO and founder of Kixel and a service provided by OnePrivacy. And Didier has a very interesting path, meaning that he did come to Luxembourg for a reason that he will explain, and he also is very sensitive to the fact that the EU is not as unified as a market as we wish it is, and Didier will elaborate on this. So Didier, over to you. Please tell us, I mean, your story and what is your experience as a European company of the European markets, which is supposed to be unified and be a second market. So Didier, over to you.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you, Jean-Christophe, for this nice introduction, and happy Data Protection Day to everyone. First, I would like to thank Encryption Europe, Gregory, Jean-Christophe, and Isaac for making this webinar possible. And it seems that we are all passionate. We are all fighting to make privacy, the digital privacy, as close as possible as what we could have in real life. And it's a real pleasure to start first with this point that Jean-Christophe mentioned. I'm French. I'm coming from Réunion Island, and I was assistant professor at university, and I was responsible for a network and telecommunication department with almost 200 students. And after some years of teaching and researching, I realized that all the subvention or the money that we could have easily were from big companies, and we used to teach students with some private tools that were not the panacea of what is existing on the internet. So we don't use so much open source tools and so on. So I decided to quit the university and create OnePrivacy to like Tresorit, to exchange online as in a way that where only the people I trust could actually see or my picture or read my messages and so on. And the problem that I was in France was really a complex situation, because at this time, 2015, France voted a law, or was on the point to vote a law on mass surveillance. And the point is that when everyone knows that mass surveillance is not a good thing, and especially after the revelation from Edward Snowden, it came to the European Parliament that we need to secure our communication. And if I may quote the European Parliament, they are asking, after the Snowden revelation, that they need to implement cryptographic technologies, specifically end-to-end algorithm for all the services they are using internally. So my point is that encryption is really important to make businesses, to decide, to vote laws and so on. And encryption is not only for bad guys. And encryption should not be a swear word. So like István said, it helps a lot in a daily basis, and it's really important that we fight for this. And we talk about backdoors, about the possibility for some law enforcement to go through your messages, even if you were protected in a way. But the thing is that before thinking of backdoors, I want to ask a question. Are we sure that for the moment we are still able to develop end-to-end encryption technologies? And I prepared some slides, but maybe it's easy to talk directly. So encryption technologies, the one who seems to be a problem for law enforcement, are considered in the law as dual-use items. That means items that can be used for both civil and and military purposes. So these items, that means also software, are regulated, and they are regulated to on the control of the exports, the brokering and transit and transfer of these items. And dual-use software are mainly a cryptography for data confidentiality. So this is not for SSL to encrypt communication between your browser and the server, but it's more about the security of your exchanges. So it's not authentication, it's not digital signature, it's not crypto assets, it's not this. And this software, if they are using symmetric algorithm with a key, let's say, for example, AES algorithm is exceeds 56 bits. So you've got a problem in terms of law and you need to do something. It's the same for asymmetric algorithm, which exceeds 512 bits. You need to ask for some authorization maybe. So there are, I will take just 3 examples. There is the regulation that was recently updated by the European Parliament and the Commission on the regulation of the export and brokering of dual-use items. There is also one big law regulation which is from the US, the export and administration regulation. And because I'm French, I will also talk about la loi pour l'économie numérique, a law that has been updated also for the mass surveillance aspect last year. So the thing is that because you are using encryption, end-to-end encryption, at the first stage, they are forbidden. Then you could maybe ask the authorities to say, okay, I'm using this kind of, I have developed this kind of software, and now I want to import it or to export it to other countries, and they can allow it easily, or it depends on the algorithm and the purpose of your software. But there are also some cases where they allow the software by exceptions, and I will take just 2 examples. The first one is open source software, which is in the public domain. So we don't talk about the copyright thing in terms of license, which license, the new license, and so on. The software is relying on, but it's more about the notion of public domain. That is, it is available online for mainly everyone who has the internet, and this software online could not be changed afterwards. So this kind of software can be easily allowed by the EU and also all the countries of the planet who signed the Vassar Agreement. Then you have a tricky thing, and I would like to insist on that for the second example. So if you have built an end-to-end encryption software, or a software that is not cryptographic software, but a software that uses end-to-end encryption, it's allowed if you have these 4 points, all the 4 points checked. So the first one is that your software should be available to the public by being sold. Someone wants a transaction behind the use of the software. The second part is that the cryptographic functionality could not easily be changed by the user. We could understand that they want to control, someone wants to control the use of non-anticipated encryption algorithm. The third point is that the user should not have a strong support from the engineers who invented the software. And the last part is quite easy. Also, it's for the provider of the software to respond to any questions from the appropriate authority or from where he's located. So if you take this definition, which is the same in the US and the EU and in France, actually, it is allowed that this software following these rules are accepted only in the US and in the EU at the general level. But in France, if your software follows these rules, you have to declare your software to the ANSSI, the French authority. That's make the that provokes the fragmentation of the and the democratization of tools over the countries, especially in the EU. And just to understand what for us as businesses, what it means that if I've developed a software from Germany or from Luxembourg, and I want to publish the software in the App Store, because the App Store or the Android Google Play, sorry, if we publish this software on the official stores, the problem is that these stores are implemented with servers located in the US. So for France, it means you need to follow the rule of importation of dual-use software. So by default, you will not be allowed to distribute your software from the App Store to the French store. So it's completely a nonsense, but it's how it is made today. And I wanted to highlight this because there are fights against backdoors, but at the other part of the debate, there are also fights to make possible for companies, for researchers, for citizens to build also tools in which they can trust.
So Didier, this is very interesting because in practical terms, so what you say is, and correct me if I didn't get it right, because it's also something new for me. So you're based in Luxembourg. You want to provide your service on app on the store. So and you're basically offering a encrypted service. What you say is, okay, even the EU, you may be able to provide freely your solution or your app on Apple Store for, let's say, 10 countries in the EU because they allow your service without authorization, while for France and for the market, then you would not be allowed to do so, or you may have to do some changes. Maybe the authority would, ANSSI would require some changes in your application. Is this what you mean? That's the same solution provided by you to Europe could be actually not the same product within the EU, based on depending on what you're requested to do by the national authorities. Is this what you say?
Yes, this is where we have to go in terms of thinking. It's like the same software, for example, when you sell something to China or Russia, you need to follow some specifications to be allowed on their territory. And so that means for some reasons, it will be legally completely correct to say that I've built a product in Luxembourg. I want this product available in France. Because of the regulation, I need to go to dialogue with the authority in France. And because of branding, because of everything, maybe I need to change some things in France. But that's for the public, for the citizens, this will be invisible because for them, if the application, I don't want to quote them, but if there's some application available in one country and the same in another one with the same name, it should, and from the same company, it should be the same. But actually, okay, we are not totally sure if it's the case today. Yeah.
So this means that in the EU, in a supposedly unified region markets, well, on your side as an innovator, you deal with different situations based on countries. So there is not this unified market does not exist from your perspective for the type of product you deliver. And then as a consumer, actually, depending on my country, I mean, the products that I will use, like the Kicksell solution that I would use, would not be the same, and I have no way as an individual to know that it's not the same. So this is totally opaque to me as a private person or a consumer.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why one of my vision for making encryption in particular available the same way from everywhere and to everyone is to go to open source, because today it's really complicated to have closed sourced, not even if it's screened from by researchers or independent companies. It's really a case-by-case deployment. So it's either we find a way to unify the laws, the implemented laws by every member state, either we go open source, and this is the second option that we are following in our company.
Thank you very much, Didier. So time is flying. We have not more than 15 minutes left. So I would like maybe to get back to Mr. Breyer, whether the testimonies from these two companies, does they echo your work? This is something that you are dealing with. Is the issue of do you use something that is already very well identified by the Parliament, or is this something that is yet something to be fully explored? Obviously, the consequences seems to be real and current. Today Europe is fragmented. So, what would be your reaction, Patrick, to what you have heard, or maybe other thoughts you have?
Yes, first of all, I would like to underline the importance of open source encryption, because encryption is all about trust. And in order for people to be able to trust your systems, having independent verification, and actually, any researcher can look into it, is the best way of generating trust. And we've seen multiple instances where private encryption was actually only set up or abused, such as the Swiss crypto company that was actually set up by national intelligence services. So we should make sure that encryption can actually be trusted. Then I wanted to comment on the issue of what are the alternatives to placing communications under a regime of mass surveillance and general monitoring to protect children. First of all, what we need is targeted investigations of law enforcement agencies into child sexual abuse and the rings that actually produce this material. And that includes undercover investigations, which require a lot of resources. So we need to focus our resources on preventing abuse and preventing the production of this material in the first place. Once it has been produced, it's not technically possible to prevent its circulation by the various channels that are available to criminals. And secondly, no less important is the preventive aspect. We need to do much more in terms of prevention. Most cases of child sexual abuse go completely under non-reported, are never brought to the attention of law enforcement. So we need to have preventive programs in place in institutions, in facilities. Actually, the vast majority of cases of child sexual abuse, the perpetrator is a relative, is a caregiver, is a trainer, a churchman, etc. So people the child knows. And that's why you need to set up these schemes in all institutions that children deal with these preventive schemes. And of course, you need to teach children themselves which precautions to take. On the streets, a child needs to know that they can't just get into a car if they are offered, I don't know, a chewing gum or something. And that's the same on the internet. It's impossible to have a tech nanny trying to prevent technologically for children to behave wrongly in the digital sphere. It's just as impossible as it's impossible to control their every step they take on the streets. And we shouldn't be trying to do that. We should be trying to empower and to teach children for responsible behavior rather than placing them under a total surveillance. That's not the way for children to develop a responsible personality. And then I have some good news. The European Parliament is fighting for the right to privacy and encryption. Already in our position on the upcoming e-privacy regulation, Parliament actually wants to make encryption mandatory where it's necessary as a reaction to the mass surveillance schemes by intelligence agencies such as the NSA. And now, only last week in the vote on the Digital Services Act, Parliament adopted a provision that would ban member states from limiting end-to-end encrypted services. So that's in the Parliament's position on the Digital Services Act. And that serves to harmonize national law, of course, exactly the problem that Mr. Didier points out, that every member state comes up with their own ideas and regulations. And we don't want that. We want to protect encryption at an EU level. And that includes, firstly, preventing member states from fragmenting the market, and secondly, preventing the EU itself from proposing something like chat control that attacks safe end-to-end encryption.
Thank you, Mr. Breyer. I would have, before we hand over back to István and Didier, I would have a follow-up question on something very important you said, but I just want to make sure we are on the same page, or I got you correctly, which is, you said more resources is needed, and if we talk about for law enforcement to have targeted, investigations, this requires resources, and the European Commission is pushing heavily for the creation of a child sexual abuse center. A new entity that would, obviously bring more resources. Hopefully, would bring more resources for law enforcement, so they will have more capacity. So pending, of course, they don't use this capacity for mass surveillance, but they actually do this type of targeted actions that you were calling for. What's your opinion on this new center? In a sense, having law enforcement, having more capacity, more resources, a European center to really go after criminals abusing children. Is this something that goes in the right direction from your perspective?
Yes, I support the idea to set up this center, provided that it's done well, that it's an independent and not government-controlled center, provided that law enforcement is not being privatized, but it takes care of coordinating the response, and especially in terms of prevention, that it supports victims, that it supports the efforts to prevention. When it comes to the law enforcement, I'm afraid the EU will have to do their homework in Europol to reinforce Europol, and most of all, the member states have to do their homework to have enough capacities in the law enforcement agencies. In fact, only in December it was disclosed that the latest success against the child porn platform, so-called Boys Town, the investigators had access to the entire chats before they were taken down, but chose to not inform the hostess of the material, of those links that were posted in this forum, which means that some of the users just had mirrored the site and reposted the links, and the material kept being circulated. And the German investigator said, well, look, we don't have the time to look into all this material. It's just too much. And I think this is scandalous, because this is known material. This could be ongoing cases of abuse, and investigators don't have the time. Even in the current procedures, it takes months and years to seize material, to evaluate the material. And I think the first start at EU level would be to set up a monitoring system to monitor how many law enforcement officials are dealing with child sexual abuse cases in the national member states, and how long are these procedures taking and pending, what are the capacities of analysis, etc. pp. So this would be a much more hands-on approach. Of course, it's not as easy and maybe nice to present as saying, well, now Google and Facebook will look for this material and prevent it from being shared. That's of course a nice promise that looks very nice, but what actually needs to be done is much more tedious and costly, and cannot be done by way of a simple legislation. This is what we're pushing for, and this is also what is in the letter that has been published today that the members of parliament have sent to the Commission on chat control.
Thank you, Mr. Breyer. I think what you say just show how more nuance we have in this, that we have and should have in this debate, and that's it's not because you fight in favor of a strong encryption that you're that you would want to limit the efficiency of the law enforcement. I mean, that's a much more balanced discussion. And importantly, some initiatives such as no place to hide is just really polarizing a discussion unnecessarily and in a very counterproductive way. But hopefully, people of goodwill will want to have this a more balanced framework that you are calling for. And for law enforcement, people on this call and following us on ISOC Live, they can see that there is a way to, there was an agreement to improve the capacity of law enforcement in this field, pending, of course, this is done in a proper way. István, so now that we had put more ideas on this table, dual use, law enforcement capacity, and so on. What's your final remarks before we hand over to Didier for the conclusion, or maybe Mr. Breyer will give you the very final words. So István, Didier, and then conclusion by Mr. Breyer.
Just one note. When we started Tresorit, because we wanted to avoid any criminal activity on our platform, we set up a rule. We said maximum confidentiality, no anonymity, meaning that we are, as we're doing everything that the information is end-to-end encrypted and all the way between the parties who are collaborating, and whether it's a browser or a mobile phone or whatsoever, we try to make the different types of collaboration and the contents confidential. At the same time, we keep track who are collaborating with whom, and also that we try to get a track record who are our customers. So knowing our customers, that's why we are asking, for instance, a credit card. And we know there might be legit use cases when someone doesn't want to disclose why they're contributing with someone else, or doesn't want to disclose his or her name. But we said we don't want to provide our platform and service for those use cases. And what we said that, okay, we keep track of the IP addresses and everything. And that is actually quite valuable, especially for businesses when they need to also log and control who access what type of information. So when a breach happens, they can go back and show what happened. So that's our view on that. It's Mr. Breyer, you mentioned that other tools exist, and the content scanning is overwhelming the authorities. I do agree, and because I think metadata should be enough for the investigations, and what we're doing, that we are knowing who is sharing with whom, and that can help if something goes wrong. But it is also because we are openly saying this. So far, this kept away illegal activities from our platform, luckily, and that is good. That we said, okay, guys, so we are for business use cases. We want to know our customer. We don't want to forget things, but we don't know what our content, and that's a basic rule in Tresorit.
Thank you, István. I think it's very important indeed to remind us. I mean, there are ways to do your business responsibly in a way that does not make your service a kind of a place for bad activities without having to monitor all activities. So there are solutions. There are balance is possible, and transparency. You mentioned this is so important. And Mr. Breyer talked about also oversight and public oversight, and that's also so crucial. So thank you for giving this very simple way to secure service without, I mean, and with protecting privacy of communication. And you mentioned know your customer, you mentioned IP address, and that's very simple. There are very simple ways to secure service. Didier, so you talked about this fragmentation, and we could see how such a struggle it is for you. So probably not a single and simple solution, but I mean, I hope you felt heard today. At least you had the opportunity to express yourself and also, I mean, raise awareness also with the community. So what's your final words before Mr. Breyer concludes?
There's too much to say, but one thing we could easily do is to continue this discussion really calmly with all the stakeholders, because I think the banning of end-to-end encryption technologies or the possibility to include backdoors in our solution is not the right weapon to solve the problem of child abuses online. It's not the way you fight this. And if you take the place to hide website where you see a kid chatting with an old man or an old girl, I don't know, and at the end you still don't know what's happening. You don't know, and you think, and you may believe that something bad will happen in the next weeks for the child. The problem is that it shows exactly where the problem is. The problem is on education. The problem is for the child to realize that you don't do that. You don't answer to people you don't know. It's like my kids will be on age to have a phone very soon, and I mean they already know that if they receive an SMS on the common phone we have the shared phone at home, and the phone number is not a well-known phone number, it's from the family and so on, they don't have to answer. Same thing for phone calls. It's something we have to repeat, and technologies will not solve this, will not solve the problem of making child aware of what's happening. And because on the other way, if you implement some kind of client-side screening or surveillance on every interaction, you could have what some parents have experienced during this pandemic period. We used for the kids a lot of online tools with the teachers to make school available even during the lockdown. And when the kids, so they were not prepared to use digital tools. And when they first tried the chat and video and all the GIFs, animated GIFs and so on, they were, wow, it's excellent. But when they knew that someone in the room was the teacher or some parents could access their content, they stopped reacting, nothing. So if you remove privacy from the human brain possibility, you remove the possibility for kids to grow where privacy, because privacy is really important for your mental structure and so on. So that's something we need to implement in a way where it's maybe not end-to-end encryption, it's more trust-to-trust encryption. So if we are able to implement or to design technologies where we know that this trust party is someone I know, and it's someone I can control the thing I share with this party, it's maybe one way to think about this problem.
Thank you, Didier. Really to see the convergence of views actually between the politician and industry. And I hope, Mr. Breyer, this session helps you to see that we have in Europe, I mean, innovators, business people who do think also in terms of trust and safety. And this is maybe not well known because, I mean, Tresorit, Kixel, and the other members of, we are all SMEs. You have been talking today with entrepreneurs who have little time actually to go to your office and to lobby. I mean, we don't have really much capacity, but they take the time. And thank you, Didier and István, to take the time to engage in a policy debate while this is not your, day-to-day work. And Mr. Breyer, also, I hope you enjoyed to see such people and engage, and hopefully this will help close also the relationship between the Parliament and the European Parliament and the our national entrepreneurs. So last word from you, Mr. Breyer, and then we will say goodbye. And thank you for everybody's patience on this call.
It's so important to have a coalition such as yours to explain what the importance of encryption and privacy and advocate for it. That's really essential. So thank you for your work. When it comes to the upcoming chat control proposal, it's important that we explain that child porn rings don't organize themselves on Facebook, on WhatsApp, or other communication services. They set up their own platforms, and that's what needs to be investigated by using undercover investigations. And finally, let's not accept the alleged dichotomy between privacy versus safety. That's what they try to make it look like, you know, safety is more important than privacy. But actually, the encryption debate is about safety versus safety, because secure communications protects our safety in many ways. The safety of individuals, of businesses, of governments, and it undermines our safety to be to disrupt it and include backdoors in it. And that's what we need to explain and make sure that the discourse is framed in this way, the public understands, and not to let them get away with this easy method of instilling fear in people and making them believe that this would actually increase their safety. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the perfect conclusion. I will not say anything more, just to support exactly what you have just said. So I think we will try to do our best to bring more nuance and stop this conflict, fake conflict between safety and privacy. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, István and Didier, for making the time as well. Thank you, Mr. Breyer. This was a great discussion. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.